Assalamu alaikum students, and welcome to your recorded lecture for Julius Caesar Act 5 and Scene 3. So let's discuss the objectives for this particular lesson. We are going to explore the disastrous consequences of miscommunication. We'll see throughout the scene how Cassius is trying to gather information, and how that information is relayed to him is what plays a very important part in what happens at the end of this scene. We are going to analyze Cassius's actions and his hasty, his quick, his impulsive decisions, and how they were influenced by his belief in omens. And this is something we discussed yesterday in the live session as well. And this is a theme that is going to cover this particular session as well. Cassius's belief in omens and how that affected the action here. And then we're going to reflect on Brutus and how Caesar's ghost and his own growing guilt affected how Brutus reacts to different situations here. This comic strip is going to give you a quick review of yesterday's session. So you can pause this particular session here and read through this. I'm just going to give you a quick overview. The first picture, it actually shows the beginning of the scene, the beginning of this act, where all the generals are there on the field, they're exchanging insults, and this is what gets the scene started. The second picture, it talks about Cassius and his beliefs and what happened with the eagles and the carrion birds and everything, and how that affected his mood and his beliefs and his understanding of what was going to happen. And the last one is this discussion between Brutus and Cassius about what would happen if they fail, what would happen if they did not win. And they talk about suicide and whether that would be a good option or not. So as this particular scene opens, scene 3 opens, the battle is still continuing. And this first few lines, it talks about Cassius's chivalry. Initially in this scene, in the first few lines, Cassius is shown to be very honorable, as he says that when his flag bearer tried to run away, he killed him because it was a very dishonorable thing to do. To desert your position, to leave your position was a very dishonorable thing in Cassius's eyes, and that is why he killed his own flag bearer. How Titinius responds is by condemning Brutus's tactics, by questioning Brutus's tactics, because he says that Brutus gave the word too early to his soldiers. Brutus had an advantage in the battle, but he gave the word of victory probably a little too early, and that is why his soldiers fell to spoil. His soldiers fell to spoil means his soldiers started collecting money and all of these valuables from the other army, and that is why they got distracted, and it was easier for Antony's men to come from behind and surround them, and Brutus probably lost the advantage. And that is how Titinius sees it, that Brutus's decisions, hasty and quick decisions, actually affected the battle here. So Octavius's men now appear to be overtaking Brutus's, and Antony's army is enclosing Cassius's army. So from both sides, Brutus and Cassius seem to be losing. So instead of taking quick decisions, which is needed on a battlefield, instead of being very quick in trying to win the situation, trying to reverse the situation, Cassius completely goes on the back foot. And this is a theme, this is a recurring theme in all 3 scenes of Act 5. And we see Cassius to be very melancholic, very pessimistic, very prone to despair. And that is what he does here as well. Instead of himself getting on his horse or trying to do something to win the war, he asks his friends to do so. He asks Titinius and Pandarus to look out and to find out what actually happened. So he sees a few tents on fire and he asks Titinius to go and have a look. And then he asks Pindarus to follow Titinius from a hill nearby. He himself is not very active. He's taken the back foot. He's not doing anything. He gauges the situation before making any judgments. He is shown to be very scared here, you can say. He's not very proactive. So he sends Titinius to investigate whose troops had started the fire, and then he tells Pindarus to relay Titinius's position, to keep an eye on what is happening with Titinius. So again, as Pindarus keeps an eye, as Pindarus relays relays point by point what is happening with Titinius, Cassius's despair seems to have come to its boiling point here. This day I breathed first, and again he's referring to his own birthday. This was his birthday, and he's recalling this day I breathed first. Time has come round, and where I did begin, there shall I end. So even before he comes to know what happened with Titinius, he is foreshadowing his own death. My life has run his compass. My life has come to an end. He just cannot take all of this anymore. So when he actually comes to know from Pindarus that Titinius was enclosed by men, he was taken down, he doesn't even stop to confirm whether those men were his own or were Brutus's, or whether they were the enemies. He takes his own decision. He does not wait for other sources to tell him what had happened. He is very decisive for his own fate. So Pindarus misreads the battle and Cassius despairs. A despair that began in scene 1, a despair that began with him looking at those omens. So Cassius's hasty assessment of the battle's outcome is apparently influenced by his interpretation of the carrion birds he saw earlier. So Cassius lets his beliefs dictate his fate. It's like Cassius has decided in the beginning of this act that I'm going to die. And that is how every situation he sees, every situation that he comes across, it's just the negative that he perceives. So Cassius's melancholy is the mother to his death. Cassius's innate sadness, his innate grief, his innate questioning of killing Caesar and the omens and how they affected him very negatively, it overshadowed everything else that was happening around him. So he asks Pindarus to kill him. How? To kill him with the same sword that ran through Caesar's bowels. So he says to Pindarus that with this good sword that ran through Caesar's bowels, search this bosom. He wants Pindarus to stab him in his heart with the same dagger with which he killed Caesar. And as Pindarus stabs him, what is the first idea, what is the first thought that comes to his mind? Caesar, thou art revenged. And again, this is something that we see with Cassius and we will see with Brutus as well, that they seem to be recalling those events quite a lot. And because so much time has passed since their killing of Caesar, they are now probably questioning killing Caesar, because their intentions for killing Caesar was because he was ambitious, and they had envisioned that as soon as Caesar would die, they would come to power. Probably they would be hailed as heroes, but that did not happen. It was the complete opposite. Since Caesar's death, Cassius and Brutus both had been targeted. They were hated. They were targeted by the Roman public and they were driven out to war. So that is why they are constantly questioning and they are saying that Caesar, thou art avenged. So the omen Cassius saw influences him to believe the battle was completely lost, and he kills himself, which causes his forces to lose the battle as well. Cassius would have been victorious if he hadn't misunderstood the signs and despaired hastily, setting off a chain of disasters. It sort of became one after the other, bad things were happening. And that is how it affected the outcome of the war.